They decided to try and make a Laura of my art instead of like refuting any of the points I made or actually trying to like communicate why they have a different opinion.
Alright, let's give this refuting your points and communicating why I have a different opinion thing a try.
One of the most common reactions I got on my poisoning video was basically, lol, it doesn't work, or they've already broken this. I got so many comments about it, I really started to worry that I had missed something in my initial research. However, though I found many random social media posts that confidently claimed this, I couldn't find a single reliable source that did.
I really don't have a horse in this fight. I think glaze and nightshade working is great for the advancement of technology. By trying to break them and coming up with better poisons to break the patches, we might come to know more about how neural networks work under the hood. But I will acknowledge the person making that Laura trying to disprove you totally misunderstood the point of nightshade and your purpose in using it.
Other people say that Nightshade works, but that it's too late because many generators have already been trained on so much data. But in the Forbes article on AI model collapse, they make it clear that without a constant stream of high-quality human content, AI model collapse is inevitable.
Think about it for a sec. If you download a model onto your personal computer, it's a static thing, like a single-player video game or a Word document or a DAW. Do you seriously think it's some living thing that needs to be fed or else it'll starve and die? Please, for the love of Satan, read the rest of that fucking article. What it actually means is that model collapse is inevitable if AI is continuously trained on a diet of AI-generated data, which will reinforce its own biases without human-generated data to correct it. But if it's trained on neither, it will stay exactly as it is. We know because we've actually downloaded models and ran them locally without training them any further. That's what people mean when they say poisoning new images won't matter because unpoisoned models already exist.
There are so many tiny decisions that you make when you're writing a story or making an image that your subconscious is leaking through and putting in texture and soul that you're not even consciously aware of. I actually have an example of this myself. When I was designing the world of Unfamiliar, my graphic novel, I kept finding myself drawing these orange hills in the background. And if you had asked me when I was first starting the comic why I was doing that, what those were there for, I couldn't have told you. I think I probably would have said something like, well, my main character's kind of cool tone, so the orange helps offset that. The hills, they just look cute and round, kind of like the shape language of my character. It wasn't until after the book had been published that I realized I was drawing these hills. This is the Palouse, this is where I grew up. The wheat fields around where I grew up turned this beautiful rolling orange color. I was replicating my home.
I'm not sure your point about the hills in your webcomic intrinsically means texture and soul. Like, okay, you've been subconsciously drawing orange hills because you grew up in that place with orange hills. Can't that just mean you keep putting it in your work because you saw it a lot, so your brain is, pardon the term, trained on those views of the landscape? I'm just gonna steelman you and assume what you actually meant was that you grew up there, so the place carries emotional significance, and so you subconsciously put it in your work when you want to evoke a sense of nostalgia or something. In which case, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But that aside, I don't really care if the exact mechanisms are just like human inspiration or not. Like, your annoyingly indeterminate example aside, obviously it doesn't. AI models don't have emotions, consciousness, or intent, but how on earth is that relevant to whether or not it's theft? I've already talked about this in a previous pro-AI video of mine.
That's not what I'm saying. The point of the comparison is that we've never called something art theft solely because 0.001% of an image draws directly from a specific source.
Like, yes, it's not the same as inspiration, but the human soul and meaningful connection to our experience has no bearing on whether or not it's copyright infringement. It has no bearing on whether it's morally correct or not. Are you saying that if a robot breaks into your house and steals your stuff, that's somehow even more of a theft than a human doing it just because it's a robot? I do not see the relevance, and none of you have ever bothered to explain the relevance. You just assume it's there and repeat the point over and over again.
After the AI has been inspired by somebody else's work, you don't even need to say the title of the work or the artist to get exactly something that it has already seen. And guys, without a reference image, I would not be able to recreate these images. However, the AI can, which really does make the argument that the way that it's training the data is so detailed that it really gets more into copyright infringement. I mean, look at this Dune screen cap. Does this seriously look like what happens when a human is inspired by Dune the movie?
I'm pretty sure a human can replicate like something as simple as a Simpsons character reference sheet from memory and replicate that without a reference if they tried hard enough. If you have like a photographic memory or something, you could probably even replicate something more complicated. So what are you saying here? Should it be illegal if you want to copy a screenshot from a show exactly? It's more morally correct to replicate it from reference than from memory for some reason?
Honestly, intellectual property is a fundamentally incoherent concept. Where do you draw the line between theft and inspiration? There's no such line that won't be arbitrary. I've grappled with it long before AI became a thing, because I'm a pedant who struggles to deal with uncertainty and nebulous concepts like, are we friends, or is this theft? So I just talk to no one and look at no one's art just to be safe. If you've never experienced the paralyzing anxiety of not accidentally plagiarizing from someone, good for you. Oh yeah, you mentioned copyright abolition, didn't you? Let's get on that.
And for those of you who say that copyright shouldn't exist at all, honestly, you need to think about that idea for even just 1 second before it falls apart. If there was no copyright to good ideas, regular people like you or me would never be able to rise on our own merit. All the best stories could just be legally stolen by huge corporations, and the entire cultural art and storytelling scene would be dominated by faceless, soulless corporations, big fat liar style.
What a cute way of saying you have so little respect for your ideological opponents that you assume they haven't thought about their own ideas for even 1 second. In fact, it sounds like you're the one who thinks that thinking about it for just 1 second is sufficient to understand it fully and arrive at the correct conclusion. I'm telling you now, you'd be hard-pressed to find any IP abolitionist who hasn't heard your exact argument a dozen times. Have you heard ours? It's frankly insulting that you tell us to think for 1 second when people have made entire videos on the subject, which you'll probably never watch despite criticizing people for attacking you without properly watching yours. But to summarize, your arguments here assume a lot of things. It assumes big companies can profit off of art when others can steal from them in return. Maybe given capitalism, big companies can still take advantage because they have material property even if they have no intellectual property. For instance, a random nobody like me can't print my own t-shirt without outsourcing it to someone with machinery. But then you're assuming capitalism is inevitable. And maybe you don't believe the abolition of capitalism is realistic, but there are people out there who do, yet still cling onto intellectual property, and I just can't comprehend how they hold both views without cognitive dissonance. Anyway, I actually draw, and I've been making my work public domain since before AI was a thing. Links are in the description, by the way. Please steal to your heart's content.
So many people were seeing these pieces and looking for stuff that reminded them of the style, because to them, this art has no owner, it has no origin. But as we know, the way that AI generators train, this is the culmination of probably multiple artists' real hard work. And we have no way of finding out who they are now. And I think that that's disgusting, honestly. Like, people are actively looking for similar stuff, for more of this, and they can't find it because it's hidden behind this stupid prompt. Luckily, there are some people who are well versed enough in these artists still that there are some good guesses, but this is obviously damaging to the art community and to human culture in general.
You say it's disgusting that we can't find the original humans who made art like that, but I think it's disgusting that you simp for great men like Hayao Miyazaki. And nothing against him in particular, but I mean hero worship in general. You think it's a tragedy if someone like Miyazaki ends up packing boxes for Amazon, but not the rest of us talentless plebeians packing boxes for Amazon. To you, the real tragedy is the waste of creative genius, not the human suffering. Because what you like about intellectual property is that it creates a hierarchy between Miyazaki and Amazon box packers. Now I'm sure you'll think, oh, but I do care about Amazon box packers. Everyone has creative potential, and who knows what they'd be capable capable of if they weren't slaving away in factories. Shut the fuck up! Do you seriously think intellectual property will help them? Do you think them having to pay for their books and software and inspiration to maybe start a creative hobby in their barely existent downtime makes them more likely to make something of their own and realize their potential? But no, that's not even the disgusting part about hero worship. Abusers are defended because they've made great art. Maybe you're the type to go, well, if they're an abuser, then screw them and screw their art. But see, if you like their art and have a vested interest in not screwing their art, then you have a vested interest in not believing they're an abuser. Do you see the issue here? The halo effect is a real cognitive bias we are all susceptible to. I've made this mistake with the creators of Cultist Simulator and Yandere Simulator. You think you're above it? Good for you, I guess, but most people aren't. Yandere dev literally guilt-tripped his victim into staying silent for the good of the game because if his reputation dies, the game dies with it. But why does he have to be the one to finish the game just because he started it? Can't victims speak up and get to see the art they love come to fruition, divorced from the identity of their abuser? You seem to care about human rights and the non-art related damages caused by AI, so if nothing else, do you see how intellectual property gets in the way of this?
If you look closely like you would if you were using it for reference, you quickly see that all the details you would look up a reference image for are complete nonsense. They're just mush.
Yes, using AI images for reference is a terrible idea strategically, but you're muddling strategic criticism with moral criticism. Even though referencing AI is a terrible idea, that does not imply that referencing AI is more plagiarism than referencing a real image. When people say, but referencing AI is okay, right? They mean, if you say they're art thieves for generated AI images and claiming it as their own, would you also say they're art thieves for generating AI images and using them as references for something they've drawn by hand? You failed the ideological Turing test by misunderstanding the spirit of the objection. Also, if you're referencing something as simple as a line or a waistcoat, it's simple enough to just look it up, but if you have a super specific thing or combination of things in mind, it saves real effort over looking up the needed references, especially if it's just like background elements and super faithful details don't matter. But again, none of this is related to the moral argument.
The word Luddite came up a lot in the comment sections of that video.
Yep, that's a stupid critique and I have no interest in defending it. Next.
I don't know where people get the idea that generative AI is lower cost of entry. If we're talking about literal cost, there's no way that a computer or a smartphone plus probably a monthly subscription that's going to cost you over $100 a year is going to be cheaper than a pen and some paper.
I think it's kind of disingenuous to compare a computer or smartphone with pen and paper. How many pen and paper artists do you follow? Can you use a pen and paper to draw a polished, colored piece? Also, probably a monthly subscription shows how out of touch you are with the AI options available. I don't pay any AI company a dime, and I can already do plenty. You do also have local models, but they are actually less accessible, so they're not really relevant here. But PixAI, Civitai, Leonardo.ai, ChatGPT, Gemini, LTX Studio, FreePic, they all give free generations daily, and I don't even use all of them to do all my AI gen. It's about as accessible as those custom dress-up dolls or avatar creation websites I played around with as a kid. So if you really want to go there, I'm pretty sure borrowing a library computer with an internet connection is even cheaper than pen and paper. Checkmate, Luddite. If you're asking about disabled artists, by which I think you mean disabled people who already make art without AI, that's a biased sample. Of course, people who already have access to something would not find that thing inaccessible. Ask every disabled person who wants to make art. Of course, disabled in this context also means having a condition that makes it hard for you to physically hold a pen and draw. There are many disabilities, many of which don't impact drawing abilities. Disabilities are not a monolith. So I'm gonna have to wonder how many of the disabled artists responding to you in your comments are actually the type that don't draw with their hands. If you actually try to search up disabled people's opinions on AI, you'll find they fall basically along the same lines as the general population. Artists are generally opposed, but you also see people finding it genuinely helpful for expressing themselves in ways they won't otherwise be able to. For instance, reach artwork on Tumblr, or at least critical of inspiration porn level rhetoric like, this person draws with their feet so you have no excuse. Of course, to anyone watching this who struggles to use a pen in a normal way, I would like to hear your opinion on the matter as well. I won't deny that a lot of AI bros do use disabled people as a rhetorical weapon with seemingly not a hint of self-awareness and brush disabled artists under the rug because they're inconvenient for the narrative. I acknowledge that. I'm not trying to gaslight anyone into thinking shitty arguments on my side don't exist. That being said, I'm not entirely sure I agree with those people that AI is more accessible than drawing. They're kind of incomparable, to be honest. But more options is always more accessible than fewer options. Drawing and AI is more accessible than just drawing or just AI. Pro-AI people aren't trying to ban drawing. Anti-AI people are trying to ban AI. Can you see how it will follow that one would think pro-AI is pro-access? Again, not relevant to the ethics of AI, though I will admit that the pro-AI side started these ones. With respect to inevitability, I again have no horse in this race, and I'll honestly be glad if the bubble burst and investors stop shoehorning AI into everything and pushing cringy ads in our faces. I of course like my AI, so I guess we'll find out how inevitable it is by waiting for the police to hunt me down and confiscate my laptop with its comfy UI and stable diffusion models. With respect to AI being a tool, there's a spectrum of automation here. And yes, like you've demonstrated, AI is on the far end that's way further from digital drawing than digital drawing is from traditional drawing. I will say that pro-AI being like, oh, it's just like digital art, or, well, why using pen and paper instead of finger painting on cables with blood, are being hugely tone deaf, and I stopped frequenting defending AI art because they just repeat the points over and over again without addressing any of the counter-arguments or progressing in their understanding of them. But again, you bump into the continuum problem. Where the fuck do you draw the line? At what point does something stop being a tool and start being just something being done for you? It actually matters because some people use both AI and drawing. It's not a binary either or, where you either just type in a prompt and call it a day, or draw the whole thing from scratch. You've acknowledged this yourself by acknowledging the existence of using AI as references. And yeah, you wouldn't say you made an image you Googled, no matter how difficult it was to find. One could argue that's because someone else has a much better claim to being the creator. The picture didn't come to exist and get on the internet on its own. But I'm happy to say AI users don't create AI images, even though the AI images didn't exist before it was prompted, because I think it's pointless to care about arbitrary labels like that. When we all know what's going on in object level reality, you type in a prompt and the AI generates an image. No one's trying to obscure that. At this point, you're not trying to call out deception or dishonesty. You're just trying to preserve the social capital of the word create by mandating some arbitrary baseline of hard work and effort that you're not even defining.
I think a lot of people use AI to lash out at people. We see people making like revenge images of women that they don't like. We see people making propaganda. And in this case, because this person was so angry that I would even talk about Nightshade or talk about the downsides of AI, they decided to try and make a Laura of my art instead of like refuting any of the points I made or actually.
Anything can be used as a tool for spite. Artists can draw you pregnant is literally a meme. And how do you think propaganda was made before AI became a thing? Not to mention all your talk of punishment. Like, okay, if you want to fight against AI and make it no longer exist in the world because you think it's all harm and no benefit, that's respectable. But punish seems to imply that you just want to lash out and make the people responsible suffer because you hate them. Let's be 100% clear here. I'm not making this video to punish you for your arrogance. I'm doing this to prove a point, because I value the truth. And the way you muddle and misinterpret things is incredibly goddamn frustrating. I don't want you to suffer or cope and seethe or whatever. I just want to undo the epistemic violence you're inflicting upon AI and AI users, while respecting the ways you've undone epistemic violence inflicted against you. And if I'm wrong, and everything I've said in this video is wrong, then you would not suffer any punishment from anything I've said here. Oh, but AI is more often used for spiteful reasons. Is it, though? Is it really? Or are you just blind to all the non-spiteful use cases because you hate AI, so you have no reason to seek them out? Not saying you should. Not going out of your way to look at things that make you angry is a perfectly valid and healthy habit, but can you at least see how a sampling bias might develop?
Drawing it yourself won't require catastrophic damage to the environment. Without investors, the cost of this technology would fall on the consumer, and it honestly would probably be more expensive than hiring a person at that point.
I've downloaded local image generation models, and it takes less power for me to generate and touch up an image than to draw the whole image from scratch manually. I know because I see my own battery levels, and I've done this with no internet connection, so it's definitely not secretly connected to an external service. AI is wasting a lot of water because we're currently in an AI hype bubble. Everyone is shoehorning it everywhere for no good reasons. Exhibit A, Google's AI preview. If you want to save the environment, switch to a different browser like Ecosia or DuckDuckGo. Eliminate pointless uses of AI in your life. Learn some basic image editing skills so you don't have to regenerate a crap ton of images with tiny alterations. It's an inefficient use of compute for minimal benefit. The problem isn't AI, it's how it's used. I am indeed salty and mad at you, because as someone who draws, I used to watch your videos and find them helpful. I looked up to you. You might look at me and think good riddance, but I'm genuinely sad to have lost someone whose art videos I can enjoy and learn from while feeling emotionally safe. That's not your problem though. It's not like I didn't see this coming. There's no way someone as big as you in the art community wasn't going to turn out anti-AI. Like, I'm already surprised Ergo Josh and Yume didn't go that way. So yeah, you do you. Just try to spread less misinformation while you're at it. Oh, by the way, that source was outdated when you posted that. I don't give a shit about Midjourney, but I do give a shit about how sloppy you are in your research in a video calling out AI bros for their own sloppiness.
Anal, bang bros, BDSM, blowjob, boobies, coming, cum shot, cunt, dick, dildo, fuck, fuck ass, gangbang, genital, grope, ISIS, molest, suicide, poops, rape, shat, shit, slut,